Individual freedoms are so central to libertarianism in part because they play such a critical role in advancing social justice. In this lesson, we'll look at examples of classical liberal and libertarian activism from history to gain a fuller understanding of how libertarians view and respond to social injustice. Every American knows John Brown as a defender of equality and abolitionism. Brown was convicted to a death sentence when he attempted to initiate a slave revolt in Virginia. He was the first person to be executed for treason in the United States. What's less known about Brown is that before he started his raid, he traveled to New England to meet Lysander Spooner, who was a prominent abolitionist and arguably the first full-fledged modern libertarian. Later, Spooner tried to plot to rescue Brown, but he didn't succeed. Another important classical liberal figure is Frederick Douglass. Unlike Brown, Douglass was a slave himself. He escaped and became a rising voice in the abolitionist movement in his time. Furthermore, he was a committed defender of the rights of women as well as immigrants. Jim Crow laws are a more recent example of institutionalized racism in the United States. They were state and local laws enacted in the southern and border states of the United States and enforced between 1876 and 1965. They mandated, quote, separate but equal status for Black Americans. In reality, this led to treatment and accommodations that were inferior to the options for white Americans. Jim Crow laws were laws that didn't respect people's right to engage and exchange with each other. Remember that Jim Crow laws were laws. They were products of the state. The state forbid employers and employees from arriving at voluntary, mutually agreeable arrangements with one another. It forbid businesses and customers from doing the same. Government made it illegal for Black Americans to go searching for better jobs. If they were caught moving from point A to point B, they were often charged with vagrancy. In many cases, both business owners and customers resisted Jim Crow laws for moral and economic reasons. Streetcar owners actively opposed segregating Black passengers as it was more expensive to provide separate cars. Customers also began boycotting segregated streetcars. Furthermore, market forces provided opportunities to avoid these laws. One of the main ways around Jim Crow laws was to leave the South. Economic growth created opportunities in the northern United States, attracting hundreds of thousands of Black Americans. More generally, libertarians stress the importance of freedom of movement and enabling people to avoid bad laws and oppressive governments. Indeed, freedom of movement is a key principle of libertarianism. Contemporary libertarians defend people's right to move across borders, to work and associate as they please, and they advocate for the removal of government-imposed restrictions on people's movement. The struggle for individual freedom and autonomy spans time periods and locations, and the fight for social justice remains ongoing. In order to understand how civil liberties can be protected now and in the future, we will next examine the type of institutions that are essential to ensuring these liberties.